Okay, we'll get the meeting started here. Call the meeting to order. John, if you'd take roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did want to point out that you are a 5-member board now with the departure of Tom Hyder and the previous vacancy. Haley Helzer won't be here today because of an illness, so we do have the 4 remaining members today, which is a quorum.
Okay, great. And do we meet the Kansas Open Meetings Act?
Yes, the agenda for this meeting was published and posted on Friday of last week, which met the Open Meeting Act.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move on down to approval of the January 23rd meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to look them over? And if so, are there any edits, additions, changes? Okay. Well, if there are no discussion and no edits, then I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of the January 23rd, 2020 DRB meeting.
Okay, Carla, the motion. Seconds? All right. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. All unanimous. We'll go on down to new business. John, 3.1.
Yes. Good afternoon, members. This is a review of application CC20-1, which is our first application of the year, and this is requesting to allow the replacement of exterior windows and doors on a property on South 5th Street along the alleyway and the installation of a new projecting sign on the front facade of the building. So this shows the basic location of the property in question. There is a row of 50-foot wide vernacular commercial buildings. The front that on both sides does have a parking lot further up on the opposite side of File Safe, which is the next 50-foot attachment there. We can go over to this shows the historic development on the block. In this case, during 1917, this area that is currently a parking lot was the Eberhard Lumber Company. The property in question on 137, it was used before this 50-foot wide building, which has a brick and a commercial structure, was going in. They were built between 1924 and 1929, and they seem to be built sequentially because the front facades change a bit on the tone of brick colors and detail as you go up there. And the building here was done in 1928. The one north of that, just south of the subject property, was done in 1928 as well. So these properties were in place and functioning, and by 1930, the building that we have there is 50-foot wide. It is it doesn't completely fill the block, but it does extend backwards towards the alleyway. It's a one-story commercial vernacular building, and it is accompanied by the 4 other tan brick buildings on this block. Today's view on that shows that this area has been cleared where the old Eberhard Lumber Company is now a city lot, and in 31 that was still vacated. The principal property on this block here is this particular building, and I think our highlight should be on this building right here. I apologize for that, but the buildings there are really similar. They have bay windows across the front facades of those, as well as bays for various commercial and auto uses. So over the time, you've seen a lot of this block change, and in time there were approaches from the street that went into these bays. Other times there was other uses in there, but they always seemed to adapt to this 3-bay use. This shows just a paneled enclosure on this particular bay, a modern bay here, and then of course a commercial office in that portion. And that's repeated on the adjacent properties as well. The 50-foot goes from sidewall to sidewall in this case, and there's a storefront cornice beam behind this particular section that's been paneled over. We can go one more. It just shows the property in relationship to the bordering properties as well. These have all been tire and car service agencies over time, even extending down to where Walnut was instated, which was a garage at that time. This is the northernmost building here and does have a commercial use in that, which is an adaptive reuse of that building. what we're looking at is the interior of the 137 building. It shows the wall out facing, in this case, a sidewall, and it does have a stamped tin ceiling on that with the structural system of a concrete block and median walls, and then brick pilasters on the structural supporting walls. And this is on the interior of the building itself, looking out towards the alleyway. There are tall glass windows in these portions of the building, and then a single bay for automotive in the center of the building. So it does show again that there's been some adaptive reuse. There's not a lot has been done to the interior. It shows the concrete block walls as well as the stamped tin ceiling. On this one, it's a code footprint showing the proposed use of the building. This is the 5th Street side. We might go one more, Dustin, please. This shows that the existing, and this is the front portion of the building here, that this sidewalk, where it does have a ramp up from the street, from 5th Street, will be replaced and turned into a regular curb on that building. So it does take out some of the driveway access to the building, but that's to suit the new use where the automotive access is not needed or required. It shows a skylight in the middle of the building, as well as an area in the back of the building that's going to be removed and repaired just along the alleyway itself. This is an interior of the building itself. It shows there's going to be offices on this portion is the center of the building, a future expansion building up here, and then towards the front of the building itself, it does have a conference room and access from the street with offices, a reception, and meeting rooms and training rooms in this front portion of the building. This shows what the building will look like. We also have a color elevation we'll be showing as well, but this shows the front of the building. These are the structural bays right now, today. What's going to be changed is the storefront windows in this place will go from full height from the base of the building up to the storefront cornice beam. On either side, those will be stationary energy efficient windows, and it'll have a central entrance and doorway here with a aluminum and glass storefront system, so this will be the look of the building once it's completed. And the lower portion of that shows the alleyway improvements. These window openings in the back are going to be infilled with glass block for functioning and energy's sake. The one garage door in this particular location is going to remain, as well as an existing door. So the one thing you'll see on these elevations is that the brick is going to be clean, repaired, and tuck pointed, and the openings themselves are going to be changed out. In this case, this will be a glass block interior, but it does lend a more permanent and functional space on the interior. These are shop drawings on the windows themselves, giving dimensions and the functioning of those. We can go ahead. And on this portion, there is going to be a demolition of the interior of the building in anticipation of the new use. And this shows the new use, which would be an office building for Hutton Corporation, who's acquired Busboom and Raw in Salina, a firm that's been in Salina since 1920, and they're moving their offices over to 5th Street and establishing a local Salina headquarters for Hutton Corporation. It shows the storefront cornice beam is going to be cleaned and repaired, painted. The storefronts are going to align horizontally, and there will be a projecting sign on the front of the building. And this does show that the commercial vernacular types of structures are those that kind of borrow the forms of different architecture, such as Spanish colonial, and they vary as you go along the block. But this is the limits of the project itself, and there will be exterior lighting, which will be these extended lamps that will come out from the building for street lighting and augmenting the street lighting system itself. So in going through our staff report, We have noticed that the application proposes to remove an older storefront system and fill the bays with full-height aluminum and glass storefront systems. This would appear to be more functional for the proposed office use and would be more attractive than the existing configuration. We feel that the storefront replacement would create a more transparent character to the facade while using the building's historic bays and would provide a contemporary interpretation of the building's existing openings. The proposed sign on the west facade would appear to comply with the C5, C4 zoning requirements and would incorporate a logogram, which is encouraged, and the sign would be proportional to the building facade. So as far as staff's findings today, we would like to point out that the proposed storefront replacement will be similar in scale and appearance to existing commercial storefronts. Other storefronts do have bases or wainscots on the bottom, but there's also a number of theirs on this block that have full-height windows. The new materials will be appropriate to the scale, durability, and color of the materials in the area, and the proposed replacement will utilize existing building bays and make the facade more pedestrian-friendly. The alternative storefront design would convey the characteristics of typical storefronts. The proposed projecting sign will be proportional to the building facade, and the proposed improvements will conform to the design guidelines for downtown Salina. So as far as your alternatives for action today, after you conclude staff's presentation and you hear from the applicant themselves, you could approve the certificate of compatibility for the project, finding that the facade renovation will conform to the design guidelines. You could approve the application subject to conditions. You could postpone consideration of the application if you want to acquire additional information from the applicant. And in the case of a denial, there is an appeal process where that decision can be made to the City Commission with 14 days of this meeting. Staff has made a recommendation that if there's any significant changes to the design materials that are approved by the design board today, that these will be presented to the board's administrative staff to determine whether additional review is required. So at this point, we've covered the staff report, which goes into a bit more detail on the history of the building, as well as the evolution of this block as well. So staff stand for any questions the board may have on the report.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? I will say, I appreciate the design, maintaining some of the original design elements and not trying to change the overall composition and look so it fits in nicely. And I'm also am happy to see that the development is moving outside of the Santa Fe corridor to keep the side streets attractive. Did gentlemen have anything to add or say?
Please do.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have any questions? I don't think they did.
The merger itself, you could go ahead and comment.
I'm Matt Byram. I'm architect representing Hutton. We really weren't trying to alter the character of the building in any way. The existing brick, tuck point it, clean it up, and come back in, and as it was described by John, kind of take those original openings back and with the full height glass. By being blocked on the north and south sides by buildings, we're trying to bring in as much light as we can into the space. We're also opening up the skylight that's been covered up to this point to help bring in light from above into our office spaces as well. And obviously the alley, especially with that back being basically future growth and whatnot, then it's just to bring light in more than anything. So trying to keep the character of the street intact. And as he also pointed out, we don't really need the approach or want the approach coming in of somebody hopping the curb and coming in. So we were going to extend the full height curb all the way over. But other than that, I think everything else has been covered well. So if you have any questions.
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we would approve the application as presented, with the recommendation that if any significant changes to the design or materials are made, that those changes be brought back before the design review board.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, then, motion carried. Thank you. And I don't think we have any other new business items, but we have some administrative items on our agenda.
We do. The design review board is a 7-member board, but we do have lost a couple of members recently. And with Mr. Heaters leaving, the bylaws for the design review board say that the vice chair is automatically served the duties as chair, but we would also just want to make the election of officers possible in case the chair does not want to stand. You don't have a lot of flexibility on this because you have 4 members, so the limitations are just on choice, but we have provided a member roster for you. It does show that Maggie has been with our design review board since 2014, which is 2 full terms, and she'll be leaving in August, so she would not be serving if elected at that time. So.
Okay, so, all right, well, I'm willing to serve as chair. And given that, do we need an actual vote on that?
Yes, if you don't mind, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
I move that we move Gary up into chair position from vice chair.
okay, moved and seconded, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 3.
Opposed?
Sure.
Okay. So, now, do we need a vice chair, right?
We do that. That would be appropriate to have someone in case you are unable to come to a meeting.
So, all right, so any nominations for
Yeah, I was
vice
gonna
chair?
say, either of you want to nominate yourselves?
I think you are a senior person, actually. You should go for it.
Okay.
Okay, so we need,
Oh, okay, I nominate Carla for vice chair.
I second it and support it.
all right, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Congratulations, Carla.
Thank you.
The agenda shows no other items. We have no one here from the public for the public forum. Any other items, John?
As far as other business today, we did want to inform you that the National Bank of America building was approved for the State Register of Historic Places back in November 26th of last year. And you did review the Nelson Teague building also on 104 to 106, and that was approved at the state level on February 1st, 2020. So that does allow the building itself to be used for tax credits and does help the development that's going along there. So both of those are pending at the National Park Service, but they are placed on the state register and then referred on to the National Park Service.
It was the National Bank of America building, and what was the second one?
The Teague Nelson building, which is the 2-story building that is south and attached to the
Oh, attached to NBA, the UMB NBA
National
building.
Bank of
Okay.
America.
Right,
Has
right
been
next.
used- yeah.
Okay.
Has had a series of uses over the years, but it did respect the history of the building as far as significance of historic figures and businesses and that early time when it was developed, as well as the architecture surviving on the 5th floor, so that it does provide some flexibility on developing the project itself for the uses on Blue Beacon International, their tenants.
All right. That's great.
So that concludes the information we brought for you today. We don't have any projects pending at this point, so we won't be meeting in 2 weeks. So we'll get you a notice out on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Anybody else have anything? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn our meeting.
Moved
I second it.
and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.